This is the Honest BookTuber Tag. It was tagged by Dane Reeds, which was very kind of him. I guess, while I'm being honest, the first thing to do is to admit that I saw this tag, I saw the video where he tagged me right before I left for vacation, which is why I'm several days late for this. I've been traveling for the past 5 days and have just returned now. The videos that have been appearing on this channel over the past 5 days were all pre-recorded and pre-scheduled. So I guess that's the first thing I'm admitting right off the bat, huh? How's that for honesty? All right, question 1 is, have you ever lied about reading a book? The short answer is no, in the sense that I've never said I've read a book when I've never touched it. The white lies, however, I can think of 2 examples in high school when I had to do a book report, and I wanted to finish the books, but I just didn't leave myself enough time at the end, and I was kind of racing to finish them before the deadline, and I ended up just kind of skimming the second half of these books. Those 2 books are A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens and Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. A Tale of Two Cities I have since made up for, in that I've gotten the audiobook of it, and I've actually listened to the audiobook of it multiple times. So although I initially sinned by not having read the whole thing for my high school book report, I've since done the whole thing on audiobook several times over. Uncle Tom's Cabin, actually, I never came back to. So that's kind of one of those books on my list of books to revisit one of these days. I read the first half of it, but I only kind of skimmed the second half. And then on the book report, I made out as if I had read the whole thing completely. But everyone does that in school, right? Most people do that in school. Kind of skim books for a book report. I was much better in university, actually, in part because, I was on a student schedule. I was not working. I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to work my way through school, so I was just a full-time student. I had the time to read, and I liked reading, so I was a literature minor, and as far as I remember, I actually read everything that was assigned for the courses. The only thing is, as the memory has faded a little bit, I no longer remember completely which books I read in total and which books we were only assigned to read parts of. So this is something that bugs me a little bit when I'm trying to think, did I read this whole book or not? The preeminent example of this is Gulliver's Travels, which I think actually came up in a couple of my literature courses. And I think maybe both times I only read selections of it, or maybe at one point I read the whole thing. I don't remember. Okay. The other caveat is audiobooks. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks in the past, not so much recently, but there was a period when I was doing a lot of audiobooks. And if you're listening to an audiobook, it's different than if you're physically reading it, right? Because if you physically read it, and you ever notice at any point that you've kind of stopped paying attention and your eyes are just skimming over the page, you can go back and reread it. With audiobooks, that's a lot more difficult. And yeah, there are some audiobooks where I think my attention was wandering while I was listening to the book. Not all of them, but some of them. There were some books that really grabbed me. And maybe this has something to do with the way they were read just as much as the prose. Or I don't know, maybe sometimes it is the prose. But then there are some books that didn't grab me, where my attention was not so focused. So, some examples of this. Dracula by Bram Stoker. I did as an audiobook, but I think my attention was wandering near the end. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I think my attention was wandering during parts of it near the end. Also, the version I got from the library, one of the tapes was a bit mangled. What else? The Golden Compass trilogy. It's not called the Golden Compass trilogy, is it? It's called the Northern Lights trilogy. I really love that trilogy, but I think there were parts of it where I wasn't completely tracking like who was on what world because it had been done by audiobook. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy is another book that I did by audiobook, and maybe I'm not sure I was tracking with that completely. And there are others as well. Eventually, I kind of noticed that this became a problem, and I developed this rule that I would listen to an audiobook 3 or 4 times before reviewing it. I started reviewing all the books on my blog years ago. So I wouldn't count it as completely read without having done that. But even then, you know, like sometimes if an audiobook really grabs you, once is enough. And if it's not really grabbing you, even multiple listenings is not kind of enough to fully grasp it. If your attention is wandering the first time, it might be wandering the second or third time. I think what I'm going to do in the future is adopt the rule Dane Reeds has. This came up in one of the comments. I recommended an audiobook to him, and he replied, "I never do audiobooks for the first read, only for rereads." I think I might have to adopt that rule. Right, other things lied about having read a book. This is not a lie so much, but this is something I worry about. Maybe I'm not being as upright as I could be about it, is these scripted reviews I've been doing on YouTube. These scripted reviews is when I go back and reread a review that I've written years ago on the blog to make a YouTube video out of it. Now, to be fair to myself, I did kind of make a video announcing the whole project and what I was doing and how this works. But then people who have started following me since then have missed that video. Initially, I started each video out by saying, this is a scripted review. The way the scripted review works is I'm doing an old review that I read years ago. But I started to worry that that was kind of making the videos too front heavy. You know, that was like 2 minutes before you actually got into the review. So I worried that was just kind of killing the video. And so I've since stopped doing that. It is all in the description, but then who actually reads the description, huh? I think very few people actually read the description. So anyways, that's something I worry a little bit, that may appear to be dishonest, but I have actually tried to be as forthright about that as I could without making a long introduction for each video. All that for just question 1, huh? Number 2, have you ever avoided a book because of controversy around the content or author? A short answer is no, although as I'm getting older and more concerned with financial security than I used to be when I was 22, or 32 for that matter, I may in the future, for example, the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie has been on my to read list for a long time. But I've been thinking recently, actually, I'm not sure I'd want a future employer to see that, especially in my profession, which is teaching English. If I ever applied for a job teaching English somewhere in the Middle East, yeah, I would not want a video of myself reviewing that book to be present. So I'm may exercise more self-censorship in the future. Certainly in the past, if I include the book reviewing I've been doing on my blog, it goes back book reviewing for about 13 years now. I've not done any self-censorship up to now. Number 3, have you ever been sent a book for free and not disclosed it? No, you know, this is a small channel. Most of the videos only get like 3 people watching it. Nobody's ever offered to send me a book for free. Number 4, have you ever bought a book with no intention of reading it? Yeah, Dane Reeds noted on his channel that this is kind of a strange question because we buy books for a variety of purposes all the time. I've bought reference books that I have no intention of reading cover to cover. I've bought books as gifts for people. Yeah, I think what the question is getting at is, have you ever bought a book simply to look nice on your bookshelf? And I don't think so. I mean, I don't have any company come over anyways, so there'd be nobody for it to look nice for. I have also bought books with varying degrees of self-delusion. Books that I kind of thought, yeah, I'll read that. And then, you know, like a few months later when it's time to move apartment and I have to sort through all my books and I'm thinking, why did I buy this book? Surely I must have known in the back of my mind somewhere I was never going to get around to this. But, you know, at the moment you buy it, you kind of delude yourself into thinking you're going to read it. Number 5, have you ever been caught up in booktube drama? This is another question that really doesn't apply to me. I've only been doing this for a short time. I've not gotten involved in the booktube community. Number 6, have you ever had a hate comment and did you respond? Yeah, I've had a few of them. Yeah, it's a strange thing, hate comments. I've actually spent like a lot of time thinking about this. I could probably do a whole video just on all my ruminations about hate comments. Because, you know, when you get a hate comment, you're like, oh, why would anyone do that? I mean, here I am not bothering anybody. Why would somebody leave a hate comment? And yet, I've noticed in myself that I can sometimes get irrationally angry when I stumble across like another YouTuber or blogger or Facebook post or something where it seems to be not professionally done or where it seems to be kind of a waste of my time. And then I take a step back and I think to myself, now why am I getting so angry about this? Or why do I have this double standard where I don't understand why people would give me hate comments, but then I get angry about other videos that seem to be, well, it seemed to be what I do, to just kind of ramble incoherently. And I've been thinking about kind of human psychology and evolution and how we organize ourselves into groups and how we negotiate identity with each other and how this internet thing and self-publishing has kind of enabled people to kind of circumvent the usual channels of kind of presenting yourself as a YouTuber or as a published author or published presenter. And that in turn has caused a new way of kind of maybe hate comments where people are trying to regulate who gets to do this, or I don't know. To kind of go into all my thoughts on this would take probably a whole nother video. Suffice it to say, I've been thinking about it a lot, but I'll save that for another video. My general policy is not to respond to it. Because, yeah, why would you? If you respond to it, you're just going to make it worse. But I also, so far, have had a policy of not deleting it as well. Because I would just assume not censor anyone if I can avoid it. Number 7, have you ever made a video just because you knew it would get views? Again, the short answer is not directly. Although I have been Yeah, I have been experimenting with what I want to do with this channel, with maybe a view to getting more views in the future. That's kind of a long story as well. Maybe I'll just save that for another video. I'm rambling it too much as it is. Number 8, if you could go back to the beginning of your channel, would you do anything differently? No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously every video I make could be a lot better. But that would also involve time and energy and investment, which is a limited resource at this stage of my life, with being as busy as I am with work and family and everything else. The only thing I think I might start doing this sooner, I guess this ties into the previous question. I've been blogging my book reviews for years, and when I first started doing these videos, it was meant to be a supplement to the blog. And my thinking was that nobody would even see the video unless they were seeing it embedded on the blog. What I discovered instead is that more people are watching YouTube than are reading blogs. So the blog would get like 3 people would read it. A YouTube video, not all of them, but some of them, would rack up like 1,000 views. And that taught me that actually the audience is, I've been blogging for years, but the audience is completely in the other direction. People are not reading blogs, they're watching YouTube videos. So then I've been thinking to myself, I should have switched over to YouTube videos much earlier. Or on the other hand, maybe it's just as well that I didn't, given how terrible and rambling and incoherent a lot of these YouTube videos are that I've been making. Number 9, are there any channels you wish you could be more like? Well, all of them, really. I mean, I have yet to see a channel that's worse than mine. Now, again, I'm making an active choice not to put more work into making these videos. Kind of an active choice. I actually, at this point, don't have access to editing equipment, although that could be remedied, but that would take some effort. But yeah. Also, aside from that, it is kind of a choice not to put a lot of effort into scripting and filming and editing these videos. So I guess the people I'm most envious of are the people who just turn on the camera and talk and don't seem to need a lot of editing, who are just kind of naturally verbally eloquent or verbally fluent. And yeah, again, the examples that comes to mind are Steve Reeds or Steve Donoghue, who doesn't appear to do any editing. He just kind of turns into the camera and talks for 30 minutes, but is very eloquent and is not stumbling and incoherent like I am usually. Yeah, also Stripped Cover Lit. I mentioned both of these in the last YouTube tag I did, but yeah, I would love to have the verbal eloquence. Okay, and then number 10, what's something you love about your channel? Yeah, there's a lot that could be better, but I think every now and again I get into a good rhythm. It's funny because I never quite know when that's going to be. Like sometimes I'll have a book I really want to talk about, and then I'll turn on the camera and just for the life of me cannot form a coherent sentence. Just find myself stumbling over my words and losing my train of thought and becoming incoherent and all this kind of stuff. But then, every now and again, I have a video where I feel like I've explained what I want to say very well. And yeah, I guess those are the videos I'm proud of. Okay, tag people. There's actually a limited number of people I can tag here because the average video on this channel gets very few views. And among the people who comment regularly, it was a small number to begin with, but some of them I don't think have their own YouTube channel. They've just been commenting. Although if I've missed it, let me know. But yeah, Dane Reed's already tagged me, so I can't tag him back. Graham Quigley, I was just checking his channel. It doesn't look like he's done this yet. And then Stripped Cover Lit. I don't think they watch this channel regularly, but they were nice enough to respond the last time I mentioned them. So maybe this will catch their eye as well if I mention them again. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, I'll stop here.